This is Reimagining the Contact Center. I'm Marc Bernstein, and today I'm interviewing Etie Hertz, founder and CEO at Loris AI. One of the things I really loved about this interview is how Etie really focuses on getting the details right. He's not just creating a chat GPT wrapper and throwing it over his product and giving you some quick way to do some customer servicey thing, but he's really thinking about the full experience of what does a good chat look like? What does a good communication platform look like? What can AI look for and analyze in a way that's actually going to be accurate and useful? Well, hearing him think through all these questions and the detail he does it inspires me to be a better technologist. I hope you enjoy this interview as much as I did. And everybody, this is Etie Hertz at Loris AI. Etie, good to see you, buddy.
How you doing?
Good. Really good. How are you? Good to have you on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's
Yeah.
it's nice. It's like fall started in New York today, but otherwise things are
Yep.
things are good.
Fall in New York is about as picturesque as it gets.
Depending on how long it's getting shorter and shorter, and winter's getting longer and longer. But yeah, in general, I agree.
Yeah. So I love your founder background. You started, I believe, as a corporate attorney in the M&A sort of space, and that led you to founding companies. And if I understand right, you're now on your third company. So could you tell everyone a little bit about how you ended up going from the corporate attorney world, the M&A world, to starting your own companies?
So yeah, I started my career as an M&A VC private equity attorney at a big firm, one of the biggest firms in the country. I wasn't sure. I think like most lawyers that's what I wanted to do with my life, but family was immigrants. You do well in school. What do you want to do? You want to be a doctor or a lawyer? All right, you end up at a law firm. And then some people quickly realize that might not be the best path for the next, 30, 40 years. So it took me kind of a while to figure out how to extricate myself from that life. Um, Probably 6 years in, I think I was able to leave. I left right before the recession. I had some partners overseas who were investing in distressed public companies. I knew my way around that world. I wanted to invest in distressed private. So my timing in theory was really, really good. And so I left, a wonderful firm. And right before the recession hit, I was ready to pounce. And unfortunately, the access I had to capital from my partners was much worse than they had represented to me or they had thought. Everything kind of devolved at that time. So I left like a great law firm. I ended up in the recession, renting a windowless room from some friends trying to start all kinds of companies in the recession. Really stressful time. I was getting married. I don't think I could fully grow in my beard. I was so stressed out. Brutal time. When you tell the story in like two sentences, it sounds like not painful, but it was very painful. But in that process, I built some companies. I had a real estate business that did pretty well, and then I got into payments. I was in all these auctions for non-performing mortgages and things like that. Everything was being traded, including non-performing credit card debt. I got into payments. I thought that I could provide a technology platform for SMBs to compete with PayPal in a way that they didn't have access to before. That grew pretty quickly. 2010 or so, I met the founder of the first iPad-based point-of-sale system in the world before Square. We partnered. I ended up partnering with everyone not named Square in that space. That space exploded. Everyone now is familiar with tablets at restaurants and bars, cafes, etc. That was the beginning of that world. So that company acquired us. We exited in 2015. I was a CRO there. We tripled that company, sold it again to a public company in Canada. So I was in fintech for about a dozen years. I separately built messaging platforms 3 or 4 times also in my life. I've kind of been obsessed with messaging for like 20 years.
Are you technical? Like, how did you take something that went from just an idea to especially in a space that
Mm.
is complicated as payments and point of sale? How did you take an idea and actually do something like that?
I have a lot of siblings. One of my brothers is like one of the best iOS engineers, early Twitter, Uber, etc. He got the technical chops. I did not, but I am resourceful. So I was always able to kind of find people to help execute those ideas. Actually, the challenging part is interviewing and assessing the technical ability of technical people you're going to work with to be able to build these ideas. But I'm very limited. I've taken online stuff, trying to teach myself how to code, things like that, but I'm not in the way a very technical person.
What do you think it takes to be resourceful as a startup founder?
The word that comes to mind is desperation. What creates desperation is probably something a little bit deeper that goes back to childhood and people having chips on their shoulders and trying to prove something to themselves. When you grow up in an environment where you want more than you have and you're not sure how to get there, you have to kind of hack your way to a lot of different things, fail in a lot of different ways. And when you do that, you realize that almost anything is possible if you try hard enough. Like if you're willing to fail 1,000 times, maybe one time you'll succeed. And if you can build that resilience, you can be a founder. And I don't know that, especially in today's day and age, like looking at my kids, even like it's pretty hard to grow up in a world where people will let you fail and build that resilience. Because especially for like children, the world has gotten easier and people don't like necessarily want to go through that. But if you can fail enough and get up, I think you can figure out how to do just about anything.
How did all of this lead you to Loris and starting the company?
So as I mentioned, I had a bunch of different experiences building messaging applications in my past. I had sports message boards 20 years ago, messaging apps 10 years ago. My wife is a dietitian for eating disorders. I built a platform like an Instagram for dietitians. A lot of different thoughts about how people feel when they communicate specifically in text. The idea for Loris was born out of a need to help folks communicate. Primarily at the beginning, it was soft skills based. We had a partnership when we started that gave us access to a huge treasure trove of data, over 100 million conversations. So we were very good at analyzing what made good conversations happen. Very easy to do that on the soft skills versus hard skills. Hard skills I consider more specific to your company policy and things like that. And so there was a lot of interest. We got inbound requests from like very big companies that you would know in startups. A lot of them saying we're moving channel mix wise from talking to companies on the phone to moving to digital channels. On digital, it's much more difficult to understand empathy, tone, a lot of these soft skills. You are all very, very good at that. Could you teach us? And so that was kind of a combination of a lot of different ideas from the past that came together to help launch basically the first iteration of our product.
Do you have any thoughts or principles on like how do you do digital communication well?
It's hard to kind of put that into a black and white rule that applies to everyone. It depends on the nature of the conversations, the type of company, how long those interactions are, what's the expectation on both sides. In general, there's certain heuristics that work in digital channels that would mimic voice interactions, meaning when do you apologize? How do I validate? How do you know that I'm listening to you when you're interacting? How do I acknowledge frustration? How do I even open and close? How do I like empathize with you without you hearing that in the tone of my voice? And so our models do it in a variety of different ways. It's hard for me to give you like specific rules. We have many, many, many different ways and techniques to pattern match and like map conversations that are going well or less well. And as technology is evolving, those inputs are changing too.
What's an example of like maybe one of the ways that your technology would do pattern matching?
So when we started, we built what I would argue is the best sentiment analysis in the world. It was originally a 10-point scale, and it would take into account not just the conversation, but on the message level, back and forth, every interaction between customer and agent, we would score with a variety of models. So think of conversation markers mapping out conversations, and basically the customer's inbounding, and they're going to let us know how they're feeling, and we pick that up with very high accuracy based on whether it's going well or not, and the topic. There's certain things that are appropriate and not appropriate. And so, as an example, we have reasons to review, frustration, escalation. Someone in the fintech environment is upset; they're going to threaten to go to the regulator. Like we pick that up, that takes you down a different flow. So we have all these different ways and all this different metadata that is associated with a conversation and with a message that will then determine how to best get to resolution with the end user.
So that's where you were starting with really good sentiment analysis. And over time, what have you been building toward?
So we now have almost 24 proprietary models that do a variety of things. But we started off mapping just the customer side of the conversation at the beginning. Then we evolved to analyzing the agent side of the conversation. So a lot of different technologies can do one or the other. Like think of it as two sides of a fence. But now we can kind of see if customers do this and agents respond with that, what's the next iteration? Like how does that ping pong evolve? That's becoming more and more impactful, deeper, and there's a lot of different things that you can do with that data and that analysis.
And what sort of things are you finding there? How does the ping pong work?
They want to interact with the right volume, meaning if there was no volume and no one contacted the customer service center, that wouldn't be good, right? You would not have any opportunities to upsell. You wouldn't get to know your customers. You wouldn't be aware of bugs, churn threats, etc. So there's some volume that's incredibly valuable to companies. There's some volume that's less valuable. It's repetitive. You wish that someone was on your website and had answered with self-service that answer without contacting your customer service agent because that's expensive. So one of the things is kind of figuring out like which volume is good volume versus bad volume. Second is once someone interacts with me, I need to do the best job that I can. I want high CSAT, I want high NPS, I want a good customer interaction. And third, I want to do one and two as efficiently as possible. So we help companies do all those things. So once you map out these conversations, you can start to understand high level from a head of CX or even head of product or some other C-suite executive. This is the volume that's good. This is the volume that we could probably find a way to deflect or move or self-service, etc. Then I can figure out once someone is here, what are leading to good and bad conversations? What are the patterns that are associated with good resolutions for specific types of issues and bad resolutions and upsell opportunities, etc. And then you want to wrap that all in a ball that is very, very fast and easy to do. And so people are in a different stage of their evolution going down that path, but that's the vision of like what we're going and what we're doing.
I'm curious how much of volume you think is automatable today. Like, what are you finding? And then where do you see that going? I think most people wouldn't say that it'll get at 100%, but I think most people, if they were kind of just put a finger in the air and guess, would say it's going to be over 50. So, what do you think, and what are you guys seeing about what volume can truly be automated?
We're very good at analyzing conversations. Obviously, on the human level, we've also had a lot of interest from the chatbot companies to analyze the chatbots, and we've done that as well. They don't love the results. The results are basically you're pushing way too much volume to the chatbots and the automated channels. Most of that volume still needs to go to humans because no one's happy with the chatbot interaction.
Why
So
is
start
that?
there.
That's killer. Why is that?
I mean, I think innately, I've always had this kind of core belief as people invest more in their brand and the interactions that they have with their customers. Customers also feel like they've invested in relationships with these predominantly like recurring businesses, recurring revenues becoming the thing. So you have this subscription based relationship with your brand, and you're going to spend time and pick up the phone or start chatting or email, etc. You're investing in this company in this relationship. You expect them to do the same, and a lot of people think that when you just automate responses back to me,
Hmm.
you failed in that it's not reciprocal. I think that's a little bit of it. Like people who just press zero on an IVR or they get to a chatbot and they just want to move on to speak to a human. They think they deserve a human interaction, rightfully so. And so some people just they're not interested in that conversation. Second is those conversations have historically not been as effective as people like to think that they should be. And so people get frustrated and then you repeat yourself and then you just, again, why am I here? Give me a human. I'm spending my time. Shouldn't a human come and interact with me and resolve this? Um, that's, I guess, why I think that the chatbot world hasn't moved as fast as maybe some people have thought. Now, I think what's going to happen, that's going to get much better. Obviously, technology is moving at an incredibly fast rate. So a lot of those conversations will become automatable. One thing that we expect to happen is that I think consumers will also have their own AI assistant to interact with companies soon. And so you're going to have in very short order a lot of machines talking to machines. And so I would expect your question of volume and percentages. People think that volume might go down. I think it's going to 10x. I think it'll be so easy to interact with a company. You're going to wake up in the morning and instead of asking your wife to call the telecom company to dispute the bill, or you're going to return your shoes or whatever, you'll just tell your AI assistant to do it and you'll go to the office. And so that AI assistant will create a bunch of new volume that some company has to respond to. And so you're going to have machine talking to machine. You probably will have the same number of humans. They'll just be handling the more difficult conversations at the highest level. And I would bet almost anything that volumes will go through the roof in this world. So what percentage will be automatable? Increasing. It's going to continue to increase, but I don't know that that's going to be at the sacrifice of human jobs.
And actually, I love that counterintuitive take. It's a little bit, it reminds me of the start of COVID when volumes were spiking and people were like, why? And it was like, maybe people are bored. Like, on one hand, obviously there's a lot of like home purchases people were doing and everyone was getting a lot more stuff on Amazon and trying to beef up their like personal living environments because they're spending more time there. And then there was stimulus money. But also it seemed like a big portion of it is just people had the time to kind of clear out their list and go through these old interactions that they were meaning to have. So that's actually a really interesting concept that maybe we all have, and I can actually think for myself, I definitely have almost like a backlog of customer service, things that I want to do, that if I had an agent that I could just, speak to one sentence, like, hey, go deal with this, that company would then have an interaction. But since I just haven't gotten around to it, they haven't.
100%. I'm sure you can think of 50 things you wish you had the time to do, and bills you want to negotiate, and things you want to return, right? There's no end to it.
When it comes to your guys' products, I actually really love how you lay it out on your website. You have customer insights, quality assurance, agent Copilot. Those seem to be like three really beefy value propositions, and all of which, by the way, my opinion is super aligned with like what the market is saying, where that the world is going. Could you talk through each of those products or each of those value propositions: customer insights, quality assurance, agent Copilot?
In terms of insights, as I mentioned, I guess the best way I would think about it, I had a recent conversation with a very large company. The CEO said, you cannot live with bad data in the second half of 2024. It's unacceptable to be an executive and deal with bad data. So historically, companies had access to very discrete bits of data. So QA happens 2% of the time. CSAT surveys on average happen 9% of the time. You're just grabbing a bunch of random data and you're trying to put a story together to tell at the C-suite level, tell your CFO, tell your board, etc. And heads of CX have been sitting on a gold mine, a treasure trove of data under their feet in the form of their customer conversations, but they had no way to mine that before. So what our VOC and Insights platform does essentially is analyze, as I mentioned, 100% of interactions with a ton of metadata with a bunch of proprietary models. So they can improve CX, but also maybe as importantly, they can take that data and those insights and push it across the C-suite to the CFO, the CTO, head of product, and really empower CX to have a huge, very powerful voice across the C-suite. The CX leader oftentimes doesn't have a strong enough voice in the C-suite. The CTO, everyone wants to hear, head of sales, how's it going? And then if there's a fire, it's historically been reactive. Have you heard anything? Is anyone inbounding about this? The future is taking data from a reactive state to a proactive state to a predictive state. And so our VOC can now not only let you take action, but start to predict. We see spikes, we see outliers, we see anomalies at your BPO in the Philippines or your in-house team on this issue, on this topic. You need to start to, when you wake up in the morning, focus on these fires first. It looks like they're going to become fires. They're not fires yet. And so you can really be ahead of the game and understand the issues within your organization before anyone else and before they even become or snowball into something bigger. VOC is incredibly powerful. I don't think there's anything like what we're doing there in the market, and it's the future. Like you have to have access to very, very powerful predictive data. So that's what the VOC platform does. QA is kind of an element in our view of analytics and VOC. Scoring agents for the sake of scoring agents is one thing, but if you can take that and marry that data with how your customers are feeling about the interaction and how your agents are doing when the customers do different things, you have a much more holistic picture of both sides, as I mentioned, of the fence, from the customer's perspective and how the agent's doing in relation to the customers inbound. So that's the QA product. And then Copilot is coaching folks live as they're interacting based on all these things that we know and the predictions that we're going to make. What's the best way to respond, interact, and resolve ultimately conversations in the best way possible?
I'll start with the customer insights VOC. Two things stuck out to me there. One is I love the line in the sand that you're drawing, which is that I heard second half of 2024, you can't have bad data. Like that's a really great line in the sand. It made me think of when Salesforce was protesting outside of the Oracle conference saying, no software. I think it was Oracle.
Yep.
And it was, so I imagine you guys doing a protest is like no bad data. And then it sounds like that product is actually geared more toward the executives, the leaders. Like what type of persona is going to engage with that customer insights product? Is it a C-level?
Oh yeah, for sure. So it'll be whoever leads CX or the COO, also VOC teams. There are large VOC teams at large enterprise that spend their day in this data, and it solves so many problems for them. There's so many humans doing this today, trying to find the stories, trying to find the issues, not quite understanding why people are inbounding, what the root cause of issues are, how to fix them, which ones are being resolved and aren't being resolved. So there's a tremendous amount of value that C-level and analytic and VOC folks can get from that platform. Not necessarily just C-suite, but at the C-suite level for sure.
And how far through the hierarchy will you go? Because I can imagine, creating a really solid experience for that C-level is like one big chunky investment. And then, creating experience, imagine you had a frontline supervisor and said, here's the tickets that are rising more today. I can imagine those being different experiences. So how far through that hierarchy, do you guys go in that product?
Again, I think of it all as one platform almost. So if you are the head of CX of a large organization, so you might interact with it at the highest level. You want the predictions. We have spotlights, we call them, where we start to predict emerging issues and things like that. And then if you want to look at how your agents are doing, we have agent insights. So you'll see kind of everything scored automatically. And that might be enough for you. People that report to you, team leads, heads of QA, et cetera, they might drill down deeper and start to actually do manual assessments and different kinds of assessments within that world to augment the automated scoring that we already do. So you can get deeper with different folks within the organization down to like, agents disputing the scores that are happening.
Love that product strategy. I think that's actually one of the things that can be really difficult in the contact center because all of the different stakeholders in the CX world work very closely together and have a hand in what the other stakeholders are doing. They're very interconnected. So I love that, almost the drill down or the detail layer, you can keep drilling down until you get to your appropriate level of detail where you're like, that's what I need to do my job. On the QA automation side, how far along are you guys there?
So I think we're quite far along, and I think our approach is unique in the market. So as I mentioned, we started off analyzing just the customer side of the conversation, and you can map that and visualize that in your mind of different points and different data points and colors and different things that are happening. And now we've been able to kind of replicate that on the agent side. What are the actions that agents are doing? What are they saying in different parts of the conversation, the beginning, the middle, the end? How are they solving or not solving? Is this leading to resolution? And so we can automate both of those. And for a lot of folks, that's all they want. And for other folks, they still have a desire and a need for what historically QA has been, which is like every single message, every single agent. I want to dig in. I want to do more things. I have very company specific questions and policy issues I want to address per conversation. And then you can drill down there and then add more feedback to those interactions. People should be spending their time, humans should be spending their time in the best way possible, in the highest efficiency place that they can find. So you should really just spend, if you can only spend 2% of your time QAing, like QA that really bad conversations or the great ones that can lead to upsells, etc. You don't want to just randomly select 2% and whatever happens, happens. Our platform is meant to surface the meaningful things that you should be spending your time on. And that's just going to keep getting better and better. Yeah.
And then how does sentiment roll into that? I heard that being, even the fact that that was so core to your product when you guys were first getting started. And I heard that kind of being an interesting part of your QA approach where you're almost able to drive toward outcomes. Now, how does the sentiment piece work?
It's a directional marker of how folks are thinking about the conversation. And so it's not sentiment has a lot of different use cases. If you think about it as a thumbs up, thumbs down solution, I particularly don't think that's very valuable. If it's very granular and you associate with other things, it can be incredibly powerful. So we have several models that do sentiment. So as an example, we will understand when you inbound, Mark's coming in because of on this issue. So we have a model that will pick up a very granular intent or contact driver. On this issue, he's inbounding and this is how he feels. Already he's upset, already he's happy, or he has some preconceived notion. And then every back and forth, we're mapping that. And then the end state, how did he leave? So we can actually see, was this agent good or bad at resolving it? There's different shapes, if you can think about, if you visualize it to a conversation, different happy paths, golden paths, whatever you want to call them. We also have another model that will determine whether the sentiment was targeted at the customer, at the agent, or is it about the company? And so, I'll ask you, if you had to guess, what percentage of the time do you think someone's inbounding or complaining about the customer service experience versus the company?
Are you guys using LLMs to do that?
No, it's our own model. So it's like over 70% of the time someone is inbounding and they're upset about the company policy. The product is broken or they don't like the 14-day return policy or something else. It has nothing to do with customer service. Usually the customer service agents and the customer service team is getting the brunt of people that are upset. All these people are upset. Everyone's complaining. Why aren't you doing a better job? And if they can actually, for the first time ever now with Loris, they can say 71% of the time they're coming in because you ran a marketing campaign that drove a lot of traffic that didn't work. You have a bunch of bugs you haven't fixed, all these issues you didn't realize. You're creating volume that we have to deal with, and they're upset. And we're really good. We can actually show you we're incredibly good at de-escalating these issues and resolving them ultimately. But that volume is not driven by customer service being bad. And so when you can get really granular, sentiment is the beginning of it. As you add like another dozen or so models, you can really have almost full transparency into the entire story of why customers are liking your product, not liking your product. whether they're going to buy again, not buy again, churn, etc. And that's where good data can take you.
What a cool way to use data to also allow the CX leaders to advocate for their function.
Yeah, I mean, part of the thing that, when we started, CX leaders are getting a bad rap. They basically go into these meetings and everyone else is yelling and has a microphone and a megaphone maybe, and everyone wants to hear what they have to say. And only at the end of those conversations does someone turn to the head of CX and say, "So what are we going to do about it? Are you hearing this? Why don't you bring this to us?" Well, what was possible a couple years ago? You have agents manually summarizing conversations. You do your best to somehow tag. You somehow do some. You have so many disparate data points that are not really connected. It's very hard it was very hard for folks to have a really holistic view of what was driving these contacts and what customers are really feeling about them. But they happen to figure out, or they're figuring out now, they have the best data in the company. The best asset all these companies have is the data coming from their customers. Like honestly, imagine you had all your customers tied to a lie detector test, and you could ask them, "What do you think about my brand? You started working with us a year ago. What did you expect? Is it going well? Are you going to stay? Do you refer us to other people? What do you wish we did differently?" If you really knew exactly what your customers thought about you, think about how much more powerful your business would be. And that's what's happening now. That's kind of an
Great
enormous
analogy.
evolution.
It's a great analogy. Why are we not there yet? Like the contact center and speech analytics and then conversation intelligence or speech analytics, predictive analytics, conversation intelligence. Now we're on this kind of generative AI analytics. Like what has held us back from being there? Because that vision is like so crisp. And I'm like, yeah, I would answer so many questions that I am trying to work on in the company right now. I'd be able to actually answer those questions if I just had an ever-present pulse on what my customers thought about everything. So what's been holding us back, you think?
Look, historically, what was the best technology that you had available a couple of years ago? You had surveys, customer surveys. You'll send them out and you hope that everyone will respond, but when are you sending them out? Right after the conversation, a few days later, before you can manipulate that, right? If you tell me how you survey, I can tell you what your CSAT is. You can tell me it's 96, and I ask you, "Oh, is it thumbs up, thumbs down?" And you say, "Well, you just spoke to Sherry, and here's a picture of her dog. Did you like her or not?" That's very different than actually, honestly, I'm getting an assessment from your customer about that interaction. So CSAT surveys, and again, the response rates are historically under 10%. You're not going to learn much, and it's usually people that are upset. For the first time ever, there's now technology that can, as you said, monitor every single back and forth, every single interaction, and keep a pulse on, right? I have a monitor that monitors my heart rate and my etc. You can actually do that with your customer conversations now all the time. It wasn't possible before. A lot of the models that we've built, you couldn't create them 5 years ago. Look, the Transformer only came out at the end of 2017, right? We started using LLMs a couple of years later. This is all relatively new. Generative AI is great at certain things. I wouldn't say that it's great at telling you exactly the right thing to say at the right time. And that's what's required in this domain. It's really good at like sounding like a human, and for certain activities, certain tasks, for chatbots that are, easy queries and things like that, for sure. And it'll get better and better and move into the space for sure. But the technology to do the things that we're doing now, it was not available a couple of years ago.
So then in terms of Agent Copilot, what kind of guidance do they find helpful and actually works? And what kind of guidance have you guys found doesn't work?
A lot of agents around the world, they spend a lot of time working on an accent to get on the phone so they can speak to you in English, as an example. Then suddenly one day, digital channels exploded. They said, "Hey, now get on the keyboard and in English, which is not your first or second language, talk to customers, but not one at a time, three at a time." Imagine how hard that is. And so that requires a lot of context switching, juggling a lot of things. There are a lot of ways to make that experience much, much better for agents. When we started, we gamified it quite a bit, make it funny. We had different like logos and emojis and things to, give them encouragement. You're doing a good job. This resolved really well. So it was really high here, etc. We also got pretty good at helping people navigate where they were in which conversation, and did you have to jump back into the other one, and how do you juggle? And so you can get a lot of benefit by navigating that world effectively. In terms of I think the folks that look, some people are just like anti-technology. You're in the third world. You spent your last couple of years figuring out how to be a really good agent. Someone introduces technology and tells you you're going to be a more effective human with this machine helping you, some people are resistant to that. That's true of everything. Those people adapt less and they will adapt less as technology continues. You can't run away from it, right? Humans that know how to use machines are going to beat humans that don't know how to use machines. So that's always like a friction as you introduce new technologies to different spaces.
How do you help set customers up for success? So whatever the maximum amount of agents are that will adopt it and that will actually lean in, will adopt it.
So from the beginning, we were not necessarily totally prescriptive. So we never just said, this is what you should say. We think that Mark's inbounding because of this reason and that reason, and here's how he feels, and this is what you should say to him. We would make suggestions. We predict that one of these three things, for example, is the right thing to say to him. You as the agent decide whether you agree or not, right? So you have agency. We're not just telling you to click. And so that gives them more of a sense of like human in a loop and makes them, it has a lot of different benefits. You're not going to have a lot of errors from the customer's perspective where something silly is being said, or if you just like attached a generative AI solution and it was hallucinating as an example, you actually have kind of a judge there to make sure that it does make sense. They can also edit one of those suggestions, put it in their words. So they're just like navigating. I would analogize it to, driving a Tesla versus driving a regular car. We're going to help you self-drive several vehicles at a time. So you grab the wheel here, this one needs a button there, but now you can be really efficient. You're still in control. You can do a lot more. It's slightly different skill set, but it can be very effective.
That pressure is only going to continue. We kind of started the conversation talking about automated agents and how much of volume could really be automated. It seems pretty inevitable that will continue to go up and go up by a lot as these automated agents get better and better. And the analogy I've been thinking of is, honestly, the analogy is like an uncontacted tribe in the Amazon, and how we had civilization, move at this rapid pace all across the world. And there are parts of the world that like haven't connected to that bigger civilization. So they're kind of just living in two different realities, where these uncontacted tribes are still hunter-gatherers. And I was almost thinking about that analogy inside of a company where the last thing you want is you just invest in automated bots, but you don't invest in the people's abilities. Because then you're just going to have the people will not be able to give a remotely comparable experience to the bot. And there seems like there still are a lot of opportunities for people to give really good experiences, that right now and for the foreseeable future only people can give.
I thought you were gonna get. There's a tribe recently that they got Starlink and then like it destroyed them. I thought you were gonna talk about that, but
honestly, it's a great point. It's a perfect example. What happens when the tribe, they got Starlink and they dropped iPhones, I believe, off out of planes or helicopters. And basically the idea was to like, the intent is to kind of gradually bring them into the modern world. Being like, hey, it's not sustainable to have an uncontacted tribe living in this part of the world forever, given just how fast development's happening and the unfortunate destruction of the Amazon. But that's what happens when that distance is so big.
So, I mean, in our world, it's a spectrum, right? You have an automation on one side and you have humans on the other, and you're going to live somewhere in the middle. If you went all automation, it'd be incredibly inexpensive for you as a business, of course, but how upset will your customers be and how strong is your brand loyalty going to be when you're just serving people with machines? It doesn't make sense. On the flip side, if it's 100% human today, end of 24, it's probably too expensive for most companies to do that. And so you have to figure out as a brand, where am I in that spectrum? And like, how much can I automate? How much do I want my humans? And there's a lot of, again, opportunity to imagine you had a world where no one spoke to your agents. That would be terrible too. You have a wonderful opportunity to engage with your customers, create brand loyalty, help upsell, do a bunch of things that are really important. And so for every company, that spectrum is going and that needle is going to move into a different place.
What is Loris's vision for where you guys want to take the company and your product offerings over the next couple of years?
It's really hard to look into the future considering how fast technology is moving. I mean, we want to be the best in the world at analyzing customer conversations. And if you can do that, there's an infinite number of things that you are able to do. And so we have to stay on the cutting edge of that. We are very much there now and working with, different universities, different technologies, different things. We have to continue to maintain that and continue to lead in that space. and that can take us to a lot of different places. I don't know what ChatGPT 27 is going to look like and when that's going to be here. It would be hard to predict what will happen 4 years from now, even.
It's funny because that's the last question I like to ask is, because I'm interviewing all of these, AI technology leaders, people who have started AI companies who are actually doing it, building it, have products, have customers, getting feedback, delivering value. And I'm like, okay, so I want to ask all these folks, what do you think the world of AI is going to be in the next 3 years? And everybody says, I have no idea, but humor me. Itai, what do you think? Where are we going to be in 3 years?
I mean, I'll go back to something I said at the beginning, which is I think volumes in this world will grow by an order of magnitude. You'll see an explosion of machine to machine conversations. You'll have a need as a company to analyze, even a bigger need to analyze those conversations to decide how best to service them. Are you going to send those to a self-service website, to a bot, to a human, etc.? Staying on top of that and analyzing everything to figure out how best to maintain your brand and grow your brand is going to be the name of the game in the next couple of years. If you keep going, like another, I can quickly get to a point of when machines are just talking to machines, it's just going to be this like endless loop of negotiating where you want a refund and I don't want to give you a refund. And that's going to unload like another set of issues that you're going to have to figure out. I'm sure someone will come out with a product to sell to consumers. I'm really good at negotiating with brands. Like sign me up to go negotiate all your bills for you. It's going to keep, radar detector. It's all going to keep evolving. So beyond that, I can't really tell you, but I do very much believe that if you can be at the forefront of understanding why people are talking to you, what they want from you, and then ultimately taking action on that, that's going to be everything for the foreseeable future.
Itai, thank you so much for joining me. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Mark.